When I look at what made that entire system work, it wasn't me. Right. Yeah. I mean, I would come in because I was still traveling 100 days a year.
You set up a business. You were coaching and training, and
I was still 100 days a year on the road.
Yes.
So my wife Marcy, like big shout out to you, Marcy.
Yeah, huge.
She was, one of the big things that I learned is as an artist entrepreneur, and this is before I even heard the conversation from you. It was she was the operator, right? Yep. And she was the one that was creating the systems and doing everything else along those lines. So, I learned at that time, like my big lesson that I learned from that was, any artist entrepreneur, which I think most great salespeople are, they've got to align themselves with an operator, right? Otherwise,
1000%.
It doesn't run.
Okay, we can truthfully just shut out the podcast right there. And if everybody just got that point, think about it. Everyone out there that's listening that, if you are like Bill and I, you have a very full life. Notice we don't say things like busy because that's not what it's about. We just have very full lives, right? We have a lot of commitments, a lot of people, a lot of fun, a lot of travel, a lot of exposure, a lot of work, a lot of projects, the whole 9 yards, right? 24/7, go. And here's the deal. I know in my own business, we got to a level that we simply could not grow beyond Tom Ferry's passion.
Totally.
Tom Ferry's excitement, Tom Ferry's energy, Tom Ferry's vision, but most importantly, Tom Ferry's time. Yeah. I could only maximize my time. And I know everyone listening knows this. Like, you're doing searches at midnight. You're sitting there in bed at night when you should be snuggling up to your baby. And instead you're like, oh my God, I got to follow up on that email, right? Like, that's because you don't have that operational excellence next to you. That person, not your spouse. Well, maybe your spouse, but I'm saying you shouldn't be sleeping with your operator unless it's your spouse. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have that person that is the yin to your yang. So was there another time in your life that you learned that lesson, or can you just reflect on that moment with Marcy, or where else? Because it's such a big one.
Dude, that was the big lesson.
First time I've been called dude on my podcast. I'd like to thank you very much.
Well, 27 years, man. Dude,
exactly.
Like 27 years.
Dude, what's on my back? Sweet,
dude. That was like, looking back, that was a big aha for me in business because I believed I had to do it all myself. Yeah. Right. And I realized.
Speak to that. Tell us more about that.
I thought I had to be everything. I thought I would make myself wrong for not being systemic and organized. Yep. Right. I would, but when I happened to marry my operator, right, and I didn't, and I knew at that time that she filled in gaps that I didn't, naturally was inclined to do. I started noticing like my normal everyday life started working. Yeah. So when we launched the business, I said, hey, I got this idea. And she, of course, shot holes in it, right? And then said, well, if we're going to do this, here's how we need to do it. And so I realized at that point, and this is a key point, I don't have to have all the answers, but I have to have the relationships with people who do have the answers.
Big.
And so, that has become, even as a coach, right? I may not always have the answers, but I have a network of 160 other coaches that I can reach out to, or other, top executives in the real estate industry that I can go, I've got this challenge. Can you help me out on it? How would you do? What would you do? What have you heard, et cetera? Yep. So that was, it's having some humility to realize that I don't have to have all the answers. I need to have the relationships.
I think that's so big. And I can't think of any survey or enough sort of quantitative data feedback, if you will, on this. But I would argue that the vast majority of people that don't have an assistant or really have that sort of like ego pride, like, I've got to do it myself. My client expects it. I've got to be at every showing. I've got to be at the closing. Like all this BS, right? But not for them. BS to others that, maybe like us, it would say, not really, right? Like, you could leverage yourself. Is it pride? Is it ego? Is it lack of awareness? Like, did you have a moment where you're like, wait a minute, this just isn't working, right?
I had no choice because whether I liked it or not, I was on the road 100 days a year.
Yeah.
I had no choice. Yeah. Like, I think if everyone started to think about the fact that if they were only in their business 50% of the time, and they still, relied upon, because when we first started Titan Referral Network, which was the name of it, when we first started TRN, it was, it was not profitable.
Yes.
Like our first 4 months, we were tripping over ourselves and, like spending money and doing other things and just getting everything set up. But
and hey, I'm sorry, the lag time between lead generated appointment set and transaction and then closing, right? So 4 months is a shocker for me. I would think 6.
4 months we started to actually see decent revenue coming in.
Got it.
At 6 months, we had figured it out through talking to other individuals that were also Boomtown users. And then really at the 12-month mark, because this went on, we sold it in 2015, right? February of 2015. So by that point, we had crested. Our profits had begun to drop just a little bit because of the fact that Craigslist was no longer available. We were, paying a little bit more for Zillow at that time. Like we started to index on Zillow, and so, but like I had no choice. So if you're thinking, I got to do this all on my own. This is one of the things that I talk to all the people that I coach is, sure, you can do everything, and maybe you can do it the best. But it's not the best because it requires you trading money for time.
Bingo.
And if you're trading money for time, you're not running a business. You're just a self-employed individual.
Yeah. It's so interesting too. I think back, I reflect on I think it was Tony Robbins who would say, you're either resourceful, right, or you blame resources. And so many, it's such a, it's just such a truth. Do you know what I mean? When you and I, who part of our world is being on the road, right? Like we're joking last night as we're walking the island talking about some of the crappiest hotels we've ever stayed in and some of the nicest hotels and airports. And, have you been to this place? And have you ever spoke to that group? And when you are legitimately an absentee owner, right, it has advantages and disadvantages, right? And you either say, I'm going to find people I trust, people I like, people I can support, people that can grow with me, or you basically have less of a business. And I think it's, not everybody's in that same situation, but I would argue that many of you want way more time in your life, and rather than traveling 100 days a year on the road, maybe it's you spend all of that quality time with your children, with your friends, on your golf game, on something that you're super uber passionate about. And you can have it all if you're willing to leverage, right? If you're willing to acknowledge, maybe you're the operator and you can talk people out of buying every single day, right? And what you need is that face for your business, right? It had nothing to do with what we originally discussed. We wanted to talk about on this, but I think it's critically important. It's a great distinction.
Yeah, and I think the other distinction too, before we start jumping into some other things here, is the importance. I learned the importance of the people you choose to align yourself with.
Speak to that.
Sure. So I was very clear that as we were doing the expansion model, that I need
pre-Keller Williams expansion model.
Anything.
You were just there's just money over there. There's money over here.
I'm like, wait, I can, because I think Boomtown at that time was $999. I'm like, okay, I can do that here. I can do that here. And Salt Lake City, Utah has one MLS for the entire state. So I could run one,
one site for the whole state.
When I started looking at who I was going to partner with in Silicon Valley, who I was going to partner with in Northern California, in Napa area, who I was going to partner with in San Diego, who I was going to partner with, I started looking at people that had the qualities that both I had, right, as leaders, and then also that were great salespeople, right. And so had I chosen the wrong partners, and I was very fortunate because I had a great network of agents that I had built over the years, and I learned those partnerships needed to be based upon great salespeople, right, and in the organization.
So let's talk about that. I was just on Chris Smith and Jimmy Mackin's podcast, Water Cooler. Big shout out to those guys. Super fun. Known them, forever and ever, and really proud of the work that they're doing. Chris said to me, I was looking on your YouTube channel, and one of the top videos is why agents fail. Like, well, what are the qualities that make someone succeed? And I certainly had my opinion. I'd be super curious because you've coached a boatload of people. You've spoken to a couple 100,000 people, so you've interacted with a lot. What would you say are those 3, 5, 6 qualities that those of us that want to get better should be modeling ourselves after or trying to emulate?
Can I just go sales in general?
Yeah,
because I think there's going to be people that are listening to this that are in real estate and then also in other verticals of the business. I think number one, we've all heard this before. I mean, when I look at every single one of the great salespeople that I've worked with, right? They have a phenomenal, bulletproof level 10 psychology, man. Like their mindset is, I think at Tommy Toole, stuff can be falling apart.
He's going to be so pissed you call him Tommy on the podcast. I thought I was the only one that had the right to call him.
Yes. But, and I could go through the list of men and women. They work every single day to keep this strong.
How do you break down psychology? What are the, the sort of the pieces of is Is it the way I think? Is it the way I move my body? Is it?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, actually, it's been proven that you can change your body, which changes your emotional state.
Yeah.
All right. I can put my shoulders back. I can smile. Yeah. Automatically, it's going to
chest up, smiling face.
Yeah, chest up. You know, shoulders back. Right.
Yeah.
And from Jordan Peterson, which I love.
Yeah.
How I can do that, but I think there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
I think. And I learned this when we climbed Aconcagua. Mm-hmm. What I learned is I could do all the training mentally that I wanted to. I could do my affirmations, my visualization. Yep. You know, I mean, we've all heard, you know, do your affirmations, your self-talk matters. We've heard visualize the end outcome, you know, like see yourself achieving, listen to things that are going to motivate and inspire you. Yep. However, what I found was this, and I found this up on the mountain, and I think it's as true on the mountain as it is down here, you know, as a salesperson, is you're going to get ground down to your weakest common link.
Yes.
All right. So I think that there's a direct correlation between your sales skills, right, and also your mindset. Because if you got weak sales skills,
you can say just skills.
Yeah, skills in general,
right?
In general,
your
anything.
mindset.
So, because if your skills are lacking, you can do all the self-talk. You can read all the books. You can watch all the.
I'm going to close this deal. I'm going to do whatever it takes, and you get there and you're like, bleh.
Yeah, and then you walk out, and your mental mindset is destroyed, and it's much lower, right? Yeah. Because you don't have the skills to support. Versus you walk into a presentation, you're on the phone, you know what to say. Someone throws you an objection, right? It's actually a small win, and that's the thing that I think you got to look at is small wins. Absolutely 100% build a great mindset. And the way that you catalog more small wins is by having great skills. And, you know, like at Sales Edge, that's what it's about. Right? Yeah. It's all about, can you build the skills to be able to actually maintain, you know, to produce results and have those small wins that build up to large confidence.
Should we be tracking our wins?
100%. You know, if I find someone that their mindset is weak or they're going through some challenging times, which I think everybody does. Yeah. What I'll have them do is every single day I'll have them write down what are the 3 wins that they actually had. Yeah. Now, something interesting happens when you do this. You have 2 chemicals that actually work concurrently to be able to create a sensation of confidence.
The professor is coming out.
Here we go. Oh, great bearded one.
Yes.
So you have serotonin and you have dopamine.
Yes.
Okay. When you actually focus on and you like start to catalog what it is that you did right. Yeah. And you go back and you go, well, you know what? I closed 4 more times than I normally do.
I actually closed.
I made my phone calls. And you take the time to actually go, what did I do in the last 24 hours that was a win? You actually release dopamine and serotonin. And serotonin is it's the chemical that is responsible for that feeling you get when you go to like Six Flags Magic Mountain, right? That feeling of or jump out of airplanes or whatever.
It's the feeling that people get when they look at their iPhone and see like 7 people like their Instagram.
That's right.
It's like, oh, right. That's like people like don't look at your phone at night because you're waking yourself up.
Because you're getting dopamine. You're getting a serotonin hit, and then the dopamine is actually what the companies have actually used to actually create, those drugs that calm you down, right?
Oh, interesting.
So the serotonin is that, boom, that hit, right? The dopamine keeps you calm. If you combine those 2 together, it actually creates a neurochemical sensation of confidence. So there's science that actually backs up that when you catalog, the things that you're doing that are working, it actually generates the chemicals in your body that you need necessary to be able to actually create confidence.
Got it.
It's a cool hack.
Absolutely. Okay, so we started this question by saying, you've studied and worked with and coached and trained all these amazing people. The first one you said was absolutely psychology, and then we kind of danced through a lot of that and gave some insight, and then we talked a little bit about skill. Yeah. So I'm assuming skills is going to be on your list.
Skills is absolutely on my list, but I want
to ask you a different question though. Okay. About skills.
Yeah.
So many people I know that are like, oh yeah, well I went to that course, or yeah, I read that book, or like oh, my skills are good. Like, there's a commercial, and I don't watch a lot of TV, but like it's like basically I think it's like AT&T. They're like, are you a good surgeon? Yeah. I'm good. Yeah. right? Like, well, you don't want a good surgeon.
No.
You don't want a good set of brakes. You want like perfect brakes.
The commercial that I love the most of that one is they're getting on a amusement park ride.
Yes.
Right? You check this? Yeah, I think it's okay. Well, what happens if it doesn't work and something happens to us? We just move on to the next city.
We just move along.
We can't do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I guess I'm done selling here. I'll go to the next city.
Well, what do you say to the person that is maybe plateaued and is just like maybe uninspired to learn new skills? They've just gone to maybe a fixed mindset when it comes to sales, persuasion, influence, magnitude, energy, whatever you want to call it, right? The ability to move somebody forward. What do you say to that person?
Create bigger goals.
Really?
100%.
Okay.
So you and I, okay, this was 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. We're sitting, we're having, I forget where we were, but we're having dinner. And I think we're in Laguna Beach. Right?
I was like, we traveled a lot together. So I'm like, where were we?
No, I'm trying to remember exactly where we were.
Just give me more context.
We're in Laguna Beach and we're having a conversation. And what I'd found was I'd become uninspired as a speaker.
I remember that.
Yeah, I was almost ready to be done.
I remember. How about the Darren Hardy story? You got to tell that one.
Oh yeah. So
finish your uninspired as a speaker, and then I'm going to hit you with the Darren Hardy story.
But what I noticed was this is. Human beings run patterns, right? I mean, that's all we are is pattern recognition machines. Okay. The pattern.
Say that again.
All that we are as human beings is pattern recognition machines.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And I truly believe that most people are dying in installments. Okay. That because they're not pushing themselves, they're not putting themselves in uncomfortable situations. They're making decisions of what they can and can't do. That they're dying off in installments, and so
powerful.
I had that happen, right? And I noticed that the way it was showing up for me was, I was telling the same stories for like 15 damn years at events, man. And I came to you and we started having this conversation.
I remember this.
And
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I started looking at, Marcy and I were traveling, we're making great money.
Yeah.
Had the cars,
impacting
house,
a ton of people,
everything, and I'm like, I'm just not inspired.
Yeah.
And
you were on autopilot, dude. You were exactly the people that I'm asking the question about.
Yeah. And
like, you had plateaued.
Yeah. What I realized was, even though we're doing a bunch of traveling, having a great time, living a great life, we were eating at restaurants, and like the reason I didn't have new stories was because I wasn't doing anything in my life that was story worthy. Right.
Bingo.
And so I made a commitment at that point that.
Okay, I want everybody to say that again. This was a very big distinction for you.
The reason that I didn't have great stories to tell from the stage to inspire others was because I wasn't living a life that was story worthy.
Yeah.
I wasn't putting myself in situations, positions, and setting goals that scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Right. And so
you weren't growing.
I wasn't growing.
You weren't doing anything other than work, kids, life. And listen, just be clear, my friends. We're talking about living an extraordinary life here. You weren't creating memories.
No, not at all.
I mean, yes, dinner with your wife is awesome, right?
Yeah.
But you get to do that 3 days a week.
Absolutely.
Right? Like something special. Yeah. So what did you tell them what you decided to do?
So I made a commitment at that point that I was going to climb. I was going to start doing, like living a life for two reasons. Number one was because I wanted, my commitment, one of the commitments I have in life is I believe there's a responsibility when you've gotten a little bit further down the path to be able to actually block and tackle for those that are behind you.
Yes.
Right. And so I was committed to actually doing things that were inspiring to me so that I could subsequently, use those stories to inspire others into action.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And then also because I wanted my son and daughter to be able to look at me, and I wanted them to see me at 40, I think I was 42, 43, doing things that others had never done in their life. So I made a commitment I was going to climb Kilimanjaro, which I did. Yep. And then that commitment moved over into me going, well, I'm going to climb Aconcagua down in South America. And when I made that commitment, it went, if you're going to do 2 of the 7 top summits, why not do all of them?
Yeah.
So at that moment, I made a public declaration that I'm going to climb all 7 of the summits, which I now back down to 6 because I'm not going to do Everest simply because it's such a mess. And there's people that are on the mountain that should be on the mountain, and it's too much of a risk at that point. So then all of a sudden now I've got, everything changed at that moment because my training changed, my workouts changed, what I ate, the way I related to myself, because I had a goal that I had no idea where I was going, how I was going to do it.
Yeah.
But
you couldn't just say, I got this.
No, I couldn't go.
You didn't know what to get. You didn't know how to train for it. You didn't know,
I'd never really done any mountain climbing, man. I'd done a little bit. You know, I live in Salt Lake City, but I'd never done anything like that.
Yeah.
And so when
I don't think mountain climbing is like going up the path of like, you know, Snowbird that was carved out for you.
That's right. Yeah. Like us in Jackson.
I've done it. We just did it. I'm not saying it's bad, but like, I think this was a little more serious.
So I would circle back around to your question. Yeah. Okay. Which is, why is it that someone has hit that plateau? Chances are they've hit a majority of their goals, right?
Yes.
They've stopped growing and learning.
Yep.
Okay. And on top of that, they haven't created something in their mind that is so big and scary and audacious that it's going to force them to actually into the next evolution of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very well said.